Good evening to one and all. On behalf of Philosophy family, I extend a happy welcome to all the viewers connected with the virtual academic platform of Philosophy family. I extend my pranam and gratitude to all the senior professors like Professor Panneerselvam sir and others, those are connected with us. Today we have two young scholars with us to speak on their topic of their own interest. Today we have with us Ms. Kiara, PhD scholar, North Bengal University, to speak on the topic self-sacrifice and happiness. We have with us Sri Ashribad Das, UG second year student of Noida Autonomous College, Odisha. Today he will speak on the shadow of happiness. But before the talk of the two young scholars, we have another important short session. We have with us Professor Panneerselvam sir. Today, you know, the recently the eminent Odisha-born philosopher Professor Jitendranath Mohanty has passed away at his residence in US at the age of 95. On behalf of Philosophy family, we express our deep grief over the sad demise of Professor Mohanty. On this occasion, we have invited the eminent philosopher of our country and former professor head, Department of Philosophy, University of Madras, to speak on the philosophical reflection of Professor J. N. Mohanty and his significant contribution to the philosophic world. It will be benefiting to all of us. So I extend my pranam to Professor Panneerselvam sir, who is with us, and I request him to speak on the significant contribution of Professor J. N. Mohanty, which will be a great tribute to Professor Mohanty. Over to Professor Panneerselvam sir.
Thank you.
Pranam sir.
Uh, Thank you, Professor Maharana ji. My esteemed friends, Professor Das ji, Professor Ranjit Ghosh ji, Professor Maharana ji, and many other friends who are with us today. First of all, I am grateful to the philosophy family for remembering late Professor Mohanty, who has passed away recently at the age of 95. As far as I know, it is the philosophy family is the first organization to come forward to pay our homage to the departed soul and a great philosopher of this country. So I'm grateful to the philosophy family for this. And also, I'm thankful to them for requesting me to say a few words about late Professor J. N. Mohanty. Of course, at a later time, we'll have a detailed discussion on the contribution made by Professor J. N. Mohanty on philosophical approach. But today, we have gathered here to say a few words about his great contribution and his philosophical or intellectual biography. Uh, Professor J.N. Mohanty was born on September 26, 1928 in Cuttack. After graduating from Ravensay Collegiate School, he studied for 2 years in the Ravensay College, and then he studied at Presidency College, Calcutta. That is, in the Presidency College, he first studied philosophy, both Indian and Western tradition. And during his lifetime, I would say he has been very much influenced by some of his great teachers. He himself make a mention about this. N.K. Brahman and Pandit Yogendranath Tarka Vedanta Tirtha, R.V. Das, Kalidas Bhattacharya are some of the teachers whom J.N. Mohanty sir himself makes a reference when he is writing about his short autobiography. It is interesting to note that he was also connected to Vinoba Bhave's Bhutan movement, that is to collect land for the landless people. He was in this movement for 1 year. Then later he joined the University of Calcutta, and he served there as a faculty member from 1955 to 1962. And then later he moved to Burdwan University during 1962 to 1968. Of course, all of us know that he was a well-known professor of philosophy at Temple University, Philadelphia. And he was also a visiting fellow at All Souls College, Oxford. These are some of his great credentials, I would say. Apart from that, he was also the president of Indian Philosophical Congress. It is very interesting to note that he was well versed both in Indian and Western philosophy. Some of us know that the Western philosophers or the Western scholars do not recognize the contributions made by Indian thinkers on Western philosophy. But the Western thinkers or philosophers have recognized two great Indians. One is Professor J.N. Mohanty and another is J.L. Mehta. This clearly shows that his philosophical contributions is such that it could attract the Western philosophy scholars also. And all of us know that he was well versed in Indian philosophy, but also in Western phenomenology. I would like to mention some of his important works. The first book which is published was in the year 1957. The title of the book is Nikolai Hartmann and A.V. Whitehead. Then Edmund Husserl's Theory of Meaning, published in 1962. Gangesa's Theory of Truth, published in 1966. Phenomenology and Ontology, 1972. Husserl and Frege, 1982. The Possibility of Transcendental Philosophy in 1985. Then Phenomenology and Human Science in 1985. Then Collected Papers on Indian Philosophy, Ancient and Modern, and later Reason and Tradition in Indian Thought. These are some of his major works. Besides this, he has published plenty of articles wherein he spoke the significance of Indian phenomenology. And there are many thinkers who wrote on him extensively. So, besides his own contributions, we have to note two important books edited by great thinkers. One is Phenomenology East and West. Let's see, this is the collection of essays in honor of Professor J. N. Mohanty. Then another important work edited by Professor Dayakrishna and K.L. Sharma is The Philosophy of J. N. Mohanty. The last two books which I mentioned very clearly shows the significance of his contribution to not only to Indian philosophy, but also to Western phenomenology. In fact, some of us always consider him as an Indian phenomenologist for the main reason that he is the first philosopher in India to make an attempt to understand phenomenology from Indian standpoint. Some of his very interesting articles clearly show that how he could combine both the Western phenomenology and Indian philosophy. And here I would like to quote a statement from D.P. Chattopadhyaya, who has edited the book Phenomenology East and West, wherein D.P. Chattopadhyaya says like this, I quote, "To know the work of Jitendranath Mohanty, even slightly, is to commence to appreciate it immensely. Lucidity and sagacity have been its armor, and originality and ingenuity have been its strength." This clearly shows how he has been appreciated by thinkers like D.P. Chattopadhyaya, wherein it is very clearly stated that how lucid he was in his writing. While talking about himself in his autobiography, the title is Between Two Worlds, an autobiography, wherein J.N. Mohanty talks about his methodology. Very briefly, I make a mention about this. He says, I quote, "For a thinker, the most powerful move, despite the practical weakness of thinking, is interpretation. All my efforts have been focused upon reinterpreting Indian thought." I would like to conclude by saying that he is the one who could combine tradition and modernity, and also he is the one who could apply the phenomenology of the West to Indian philosophy. Then another important theme which he was interested throughout his life is theory and practice in Indian philosophy. For example, while talking about the synthesis between tradition and modernity, he has asked this question, what do we mean by modernity? And in fact, he says, if modernity means outright rejection of tradition, then of course, there is no promise of fruitful dialogue and mediation. It is very clear from this short quotation of J.N. Mohanty that tradition and modernity are not opposed to each other. And this is very much exhibited in all his writing. Of course, he has been saying that modernity is a contemporary ongoing dialogue. And in all his writings, he has emphasized that how the phenomenology of the West could be seen from the perspective of Indian tradition. Of course, this is not occasion to have a detailed discussion on the contribution of Indian phenomenology of J.N. Mohanty, because we have two speakers today who will be deliberating on very interesting topic. So I would like to to pay my homage to Jain Mohanty sir, who has influenced me a lot. In fact, in one of the seminars which was held in Jadavpur University, I made a paper presentation, and Mohanty sir was very much present there. The title of the paper is Tradition and Modernity in Jain Mohanty, wherein I argued that there are certain issues which one can raise with regard to the methodology which he has practiced. But at the same time, the question that is raised by many philosophers is whether is he a transcendental philosopher? Because when he wrote books like Husserl Theory of Meaning, or the concept of intentionality, or the possibility of transcendental philosophy, many consider him as a transcendental philosopher. This is a question which we have to debate further to see whether he is a transcendental philosopher or not. Then one important point which I would like to mention, and with that I would like to close. Professor Billy Moria, well-known philosopher, he in fact raises one question with regard to the contribution of Jain Mohanty. He is asking this question: are there two Mohantys, each utterly different and speaking incommensurable language? This is a question which was raised by Professor Billy Moria, and Professor Mohanty's methodology in understanding the Western and Indian philosophical approach is something remarkable. And so one can also conclude that he is a synthesizer of both traditions. But of course, this will create a problem, namely whether one can apply the same methodology for Indian as well as a Western philosophical understanding. But he is the one who has influenced Indian thinkers as well as foreign thinkers, and his contribution is remarkable. And I pay my homage and respect to this departed soul, and I am grateful to the philosophy family for organizing this meeting on Jain Mohanty. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks so much, Panneerselvam sir, for your beautifully reflecting on the philosophical contribution of Professor Jain Mohanty sir, who was well versed in both Western and Eastern philosophy. We pay our deep homage to the stalwart of philosophy and who was a man of research, and being an eminent scholar of Indian soil. He has also influenced the thinkers of the world by by his new way of interpreting Indian thoughts in the world. We also, on behalf of Philosophy Family, we extend hearty gratitude to you, sir, for your reflective thought on Professor Jain Mohanty and his philosophical reflection and contribution to the philosophic world. And you are also blessed to be with him in different international forums. So thanks so much, sir.